Hello, I'm Michael Topham, technical writer for digital photo. Welcome to this first of two video lessons that's going to show you how to create a stunning portrait montage by making a few detailed selections in a number of different images before combining 8 layers together with the help of Photoshop's very useful list of blending modes. When we're adding new elements to other images, it's very important that we achieve a realistic and seamless result. In this first video, I'll be showing you how to do just that by making careful selections, and we'll also touch on layer masks in elements and see how they can be utilised to revive detail in shadowed areas. Once the montage has been created, we'll move on to the second video, where we'll see how to improve the tones and textures with a further 3 layers. There are quite a few steps to this technique, so let's crack on and make a start. I'm going to close down this final image that we're looking at, and this is the one that we're going to be replicating in this technique. Our first job is to open up the main image that we're going to be working on, and that's firestation.jpg, and you'll find this in the Start Images folder on this month's CD. So go up to File, down to Open, find the Start Images folder, and then find the file Firestation, and then click on Open. Taking a look at the image, the sky is rather bland, and it doesn't feature a cloud formation, so we're going to replace it with a much more dramatic one, which will involve us using Photoshop's Magic Wand tool. Head over to the toolbox and select the Magic Wand tool, or hit its keyboard shortcut, which is the letter W, and then move up into the options bar and check you're selected on New Selection, and the tolerance is set to 20. Zoom into 100% by hitting Ctrl and plus a few times on the keyboard, and then hold down on the spacebar to enter the hand tool and move up to the top left of the image. Click once on the sky pixels with the Magic Wand tool, and you'll be able to see that the marching ants are now showing. Moving through the image, we also need to add these other areas of sky pixels to that selection. So to do that, we hold down the Shift key and then we click on More Blue Sky Pixels, and you'll be able to see there that the marching ants are now starting to show. And I'm just going to work inside this tower, adding all of the blue sky pixels to the selection. Now this might take a little bit of time, so you've got to be a bit careful, and if you want to be really careful with your selections, it's a really good idea to zoom in a little bit more. But I'm just going to do it very quickly here, and you can just see that I'm just starting to select all of those blue sky pixels, and I think that's starting to look rather good. I'm quite happy with that. So when you are really happy with your selection, and that you've selected all of those blue sky pixels, a bit like I have, you can just zoom out by hitting Ctrl and minus. With the marching ants still showing in the sky area, we need to load up our layers palette. So go up to Window, and then go down and click on Layers, and I'm just going to drag my layers out of there, and just create a bit more space on my screen by making it a little bit smaller, and positioning it down towards the bottom right. I can now go up to Layer in the menu bar, go down to New, and click on Layer, as we're looking to create a new layer. Type in the name Sky, hit OK, and you'll see that new layer there in your Layers palette. OK, we're now ready to load up the replacement sky that we're going to paste in to the selection. So go up to File, go down to Open, find the Start Images folder again, and look for the file moodysky.jpg, and then click on Open. With the Moody Sky loaded on your screen, we need to make a selection of it. So go up to Select, go down and click on All. When you can see the marching ants, you can then go up to Edit, down to Copy, and then move back to the Firestation document that we've been working on, and go up to Edit, and then go down and click on Paste into Selection. Moving back to the Sky document, we're all finished with this for now, so we can close it down, and there's no need to save it. Back in our Firestation document, we need to move the sky up a little bit. So go across into the toolbox and check you're selected on the Move tool, and then just carefully drag this up a little bit so we can see the moody clouds. When you're happy with the positioning of the sky, you can then just get rid of those marching ants by hitting Ctrl and D. So with our new sky in place, we can start thinking about improving the contrast in the image. So go up to Layer, move down to New Adjustment Layer, and click on Hue and Saturation. Take hold of the saturation slider and drag this all the way over to the left, turning the image to mono, and you want to make sure you've got a value of -100. Hit OK, and then move into your layers palette, and we're looking to change the blending mode of this hue and saturation adjustment layer to overlay. To do that, obviously we need to make sure we're selected on it, and then we need to click where it says normal, and we're going to change the blending mode to overlay. So find that in the list, give it a click, and you'll be able to see that the contrast has been significantly improved. Moving into the layers palette and turning on and off this hue and saturation adjustment layer shows that we've actually lost quite a bit of detail at the front and along the side of the fire engine. So I'm just going to reduce the opacity of the layer down a little bit from 100% down to around 80%. We can also brush back a bit of detail into this layer mask by going across into the toolbox and making sure that our foreground colour is first set to black, and then moving up we need to select the brush tool. Up in the options bar, set your brush to around 200 pixels with a soft edge, and reduce the opacity from 100% down to around 75%. When you've set up your brush, you can just zoom in a little bit to that fire engine, and then what you can do is just move through the image with the hand tool, and you can just brush on the fire engine a little bit, and you'll be able to see there that I'm just bringing back a little bit of detail that we originally had. So I'm just bringing back a little bit of detail at the front of the fire engine, and I'm also just going to brush a little bit along the side, and we can just see there that I'm just brushing back a little bit of detail that was lost when we added that hue and saturation adjustment layer. So I can now zoom out again by hitting Ctrl and minus. Next, we're going to add a bit of foreground texture to the image. So I'm going to go up to File, down to Open, and find the Start Images folder again. Now the file that we want to open is firehose.jpg, so find this from the list, and then click on Open to load it up into your version of Elements. Just like we did with the moodysky.jpg document, we want to select all of it, so hit Ctrl and A to bring up the marching ants around the outside, and then to make a copy of it, go up to Edit and down to Copy. Move back to the Fire Station document, and then go up to Edit and down to Paste. And then you can go back to the Fire Hose document, and we're all done with that for now, so you can close it down, and there's no need to save it. So having pasted in the fire hose texture into our Fire Station document, you'll be able to see that the hose is showing as layer number 1 in the Layers palette. Double click where it says layer number 1 and rename the layer Hose, hit Enter, and then hold down the Control key and click on the layer thumbnail to load up the marching ants. Hit Ctrl and T to enter Free Transform, and then take hold of the top center box there and just drag this down until it's just lying beneath the fire doors there. So I'm just going to release it about there, hit Enter to apply the transformation, and then we need to change the blending mode of this layer, but of course first we need to get rid of those marching ants, so hit Ctrl and D, and then click where it says Normal, and we're going to change the blending mode of that layer, that textured hose layer, to Overlay. Now you may have noticed there's quite a noticeable horizontal edge there running through the image, and we can easily get rid of this using the eraser tool. So I'm just going to make my layers palette a little bit smaller because it's taking up quite a lot of area on the screen, so I'm just going to move that down there. And making sure you're selected on your hose layer in the layers palette, go across into the toolbox and pick out the eraser tool. Move into the options bar and set the eraser to 250 pixels with an opacity of 75%, and then move into your document and run the eraser along the noticeable edge there, and you can just brush away that noticeable edge and you'll get a really nice blend between the hose texture and the rest of the document. So just take your time and run that eraser across, and you'll be able to see you're just softening the effect a little bit, and you're removing that rather noticeable horizontal edge, and the blend is looking much better as a result, and I'm really happy with that. And that's just a few strokes across the document, and there we go, that's looking a lot better. Taking a look at this hose texture, it's quite prominent at the moment, and I just want it to be a little bit more subtle. So go into the layers palette, make sure you're selected on your hose layer, and then just click where it says opacity, and just reduce the opacity from 100% to 65%. The next step in the technique involves us adding a bit of foreground text. So go up to File, go down to Open, go back into the Start Images folder and find the file text.jpg, and then click on Open to load it up. Now my layers palette is in the way at the moment, so I'm just going to move that well out of the way for the second. And now you can go across into the toolbox and select the lasso tool. We're looking to make a selection, a rough selection around these words. You don't need to be too neat or too careful. Just make sure you've got a nice selection of it, just like that. And then go up to Edit, down to Copy, and then you can move back to your Fire Station document. I can now move my layers palette back over to the right and just make it a bit bigger as well, because we're going to be introducing another layer. And if we go up to Edit and down to Paste, we're going to paste in that text. And if we go back to the text layer, we're all finished with it for now, so we can close it down. Back in our Fire Station document, you'll be able to see layer 1 is showing in the layers palette. And it's a good idea to always rename our layers, so just double click on it and just rename this layer text and hit enter. Now taking a look at this Fire Station text, it's rather large at the moment, so we need to make it a little bit smaller and rotate it a little bit beneath the fire engine. So go into the layers palette, hold down the Control key and just click on the text layer thumbnail to load up the marching ants, and then hit Control and T to enter free transform mode. Make sure that you've got constrain proportions ticked in the options bar, and then take hold of the top right box and just drag this in very slightly just to make it a little bit smaller, and then just hover the cursor over one of the corners and you can just rotate that a little bit, and then we can just carefully just start to position that down a little bit. And it's still a little bit large for my liking, so I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller. And if you want to position it into place very carefully, don't forget you can use the cursor keys on your keyboard, and I'm rather happy with that positioning, just like that. So when you're happy with the positioning of your text layer, you can just hit the green tick, or you can hit enter on the keyboard. Deselect those marching ants by hitting Ctrl and D, and then to help us blend this layer with the other layers that are already showing in our layers palette, make sure you're selected on the text layer and then click where it says normal and change the blending mode to hard light. To take a closer inspection of your text, zoom into the image by hitting Ctrl and plus a few times, zooming into around 100%, and then hold down on the space bar to enter the hand tool, and then just move down towards the bottom of the image. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to remove this darker noticeable edge around the outside of the text, and that's something that we can do with the eraser tool. So go into the toolbox and select the eraser tool, move into the options bar, set the brush size to 20 pixels to start off with, and the opacity to 90%. You can then move into the document and start brushing away these darker pixels, just like I am. And you want to start brushing around each letter as well. And it's going to take me quite a bit of time to do, and it's quite detailed work. And when you're working obviously very close to letters like this, it's quite a good idea to reduce the brush size. And if you want to do that quickly, you can hit the left square bracket key and just brush that eraser through the image and through those letters there, just brushing back the pixels of the hose layer beneath. There we go, that's starting to look quite good, and you can obviously increase the size of the brush using the right square bracket key for the larger areas, and just take your time working in and out of all these letters. And because it's going to take me 5 or 10 minutes to do this, I'll rejoin you in a minute to show you once I've done it. So here I am, I'm just finishing off with the eraser on the last letter of the Fire Station text, and I'm just running that eraser along. I'm just very carefully just brushing away those darker pixels, just running that along the edge of the letter N there. And of course, when you get into smaller details, I'm just going to reduce that brush size a little bit, just increase the size again using the right square bracket key. And when you've completely finished your little bit of brushing back the detail there, I'm quite happy with that. You can zoom out and inspect your hard eraser work by hitting Ctrl and minus a few times, and there we go, we've blended the Fire Station words beautifully into our Fire Station document. We can now start thinking about cutting out our fireman portrait and positioning him on the right hand side in our Fire Station document. So go up to File, go down to Open and find the file fireportrait.jpg and load this up into Elements. Now we're going to be cutting out the fireman using the polygonal lasso tool, and it's very important that we make a very detailed and careful selection, so we're going to zoom in and do some very detailed work. So hit Ctrl and plus a few times to zoom into 200% and move through the image down towards the bottom with the hand tool. To make our selection, we're going to be using the polygonal lasso tool. So go across into the toolbox and just pick out the polygonal lasso tool, and you might find that it's hiding underneath the lasso tool, and then make your first point on the fireman's jacket, and then all we're going to do is we're going to start working around the fireman, just clicking along the edge of his jacket, and we'll be eventually working around his helmet and just working back down the other side of the fireman until we join up the selection. Now this is going to be quite detailed and time-consuming work, and you can move through the image by holding down the space bar, which enters the hand tool, and you can just slowly just start working along this edge, and you'll be able to see that I'm just carefully working up to the fireman's neck here, and I'm just going to start working up a bit further, and it's going to take me a long time, probably about 5 or 10 minutes, to work around this fireman to make a really neat and detailed selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rejoin you in about 5 minutes or so once I've joined up this selection, and that will just speed up the process a little bit. Once you've very carefully worked around the fireman with the polygonal lasso tool and the marching ants are showing, you can then go up to Select in the menu bar, go down and click on Feather. Type in a feather radius of 1 pixel, hit OK, and then go up to Select again in the menu bar, go down to Modify and click on Contract. We're looking to contract our selection by 1 pixel, so type that in and then hit OK. We're now ready to copy and paste our fireman portrait into our main fire station document. So with the marching ant still showing, go up to Edit and down to Copy, and then just move this down a little bit and go back to your fire station document, and then go up to Edit and then down to Paste. So with the fireman in our document, we can now go into the Layers palette and rename the layer Fireman by double clicking on Layer 1. Just rename that Fireman by hitting Enter, and then move back to your fireman portrait, and we can close this down as we no longer need it, and we don't need to save the changes. With the fireman layer selected and the Move tool selected from the toolbox, just position the fireman over on the right hand side in front of the fire doors, and just make sure that the top of the helmet is also in the frame, and then once you're happy with the positioning, zoom in by hitting Ctrl and plus a few times, and then move through the image by using the hand tool. We just need to reveal the area between the strap and the fireman's face, so go in and use the eraser tool from the toolbox with a razor size of around 30 pixels and an opacity set to 100%, and just very carefully just brush back the detail between the fireman's strap on his helmet and his face, and you'll be able to see there we're just revealing a few pixels of the fire doors, and just carefully brush those back, and that's starting to look a lot better. And there's another area over on the other side that we also need to do, so once you're happy with that bit of erasing work, just move through the image a little bit more, and then there's an area over on the right that we can also do as well. So just use that, and use a much smaller brush if you need to, and zoom in a little bit as well, just to make sure we do some really detailed work. And there we go, we're just starting to paint back those fire doors between the strap and the fireman's face, and that's already looking a lot better. And once you've done that, you can zoom out and check out your erasing work to make sure that it's suitable by hitting Ctrl and minus. So with our fireman portrait correctly positioned in our fire station document, we can now start thinking about tweaking the colours. Make sure you're selected on your fireman layer in the Layers palette, and then hit Ctrl and U to load up the Hue and Saturation dialog. Take hold of the Saturation slider and drag this over to the left and settle for a value of -30, and then hit OK. Next, move up to Layer in the menu bar, go down to New Adjustment Layer and click on Hue and Saturation. Click OK, and take hold of the Saturation slider again, but this time pull it right over to the left and settle for a value of -100, and hit OK. We're looking to change the blending mode of this adjustment layer from normal to overlay. So make sure you're selected on it, click where it says normal, find overlay from the list and give it a click. You will have noticed that hue and saturation adjustment layer has boosted the contrast in the whole image. So we now need to just brush back a bit of detail in those highlights where the detail has been lost. Go across to the left, check your foreground colour is set to black and select the brush tool. The settings that we used earlier, the brush size and the opacity, can be left the same. So use a brush size of 200 pixels and opacity of 75%, and then you can brush into the image and just reveal some of that detail at the front of the fire engine, and you can also reveal some of the detail on the fireman's face. There's some of the detail there that was lost, so I'm just brushing in. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more by hitting Control and plus, and I'm just going to reveal a bit of detail of the fire engine and some of the detail in the foreground there, just where the detail has been lost in the highlights. So when you're happy that you've brushed back a bit of detail on the side of the fire engine, at the front of the fire engine, in the sky, and also in the foreground using your layer mask, you can then zoom out by hitting Control and minus. So now that we've constructed the main part of the montage, it's time to start thinking about introducing a few textures and altering the tones in the image. Join me in the part 2 video where we'll add another 3 layers to our portrait montage before applying the finishing touches. I look forward to seeing you in the next video very soon.